Welcome to Community Corner on 94.5 Praise, a program where we discuss the topics affecting the Low Country, but also programs and organizations making positive changes in our community. Last week on Community Corner, we spoke with Mr. Michael Ricks, who is the Director of Criminal Justice at the Technical College of the Low Country. Here is part 2 of our conversation and interview with Mr. Ricks. You spoke of lifting the lid off people. What do you mean when you say lift the lid off people? I've heard you say it before, and I am absolutely convinced that it is a great benefit to leaders to hear this. And so I just ask if you would elaborate on that for the public, if you will, because I am convinced that someone will be much better, and God will touch somebody's heart in an aha moment, if you will, and thereby become a better leader. What do you mean?
John C. Maxwell talked about the law of the lid. And when he started talking about the law of the lid, he talked about those things that hold us down, that hold our potential down. And he used Saul as an example, such as Saul was fearful, and that was a lid in his life. The fact that he was fearful kept him from moving to where God needed him to be as king. So his fear kept a lid on the nation of Israel, and the nation of Israel could do nothing but fear. David came along, and David had faith. So that lid of fear was lifted off David. David went out and killed Goliath, which lifted the lid off the nation of Israel. Now they have no fear anymore. They go out and fight, and they'll fight with David. Lids are those things that if you look at a mason jar or a preserve jar, you put things in it and you sealed it up tight. You sealed it so it can preserve, and you let it build over time. And we do that with our kids. We tell them, don't do this, be aware of this, don't do that, go here. Then as they grow up, we should be telling them, okay, here's how you make a good decision. When you tell them that, now you taking that lid off because we kept them sealed. You have that preserved. At some point, you open the jar, take the lid off, and let the good stuff come out. With people, we have to open the jar, take the lid off, let the good stuff come out. There was one example I used Tuesday night that wasn't in the book, was with President Obama, and trying to show how you can identify lids. And one of the lids in his life was his race. Whether we want to accept that or not, his race was a lid in his life. He had to identify, how do I lift that lid off me to be able to serve all of America? And so he didn't just hang around with African Americans, and he didn't just hang around with whites, and he didn't just hang around with the Hispanics or the Orient. He just hung around with everyone. He just mingled and mixed with everyone. He didn't allow someone to discuss his race, and he stopped and entertained that. That was a yield sign for him. He kept right on going, and he didn't stop interacting with everyone. That was a lid that had to have been taken off his life. Now he can maneuver in many different circles and be comfortable in those circles. So we as leaders, we have to have those lids taken off us. Some of them we can take off. David took that lid of fear off because he just had no fear for him. Some of it we have to let other people take it off. Nathan came and took the lid off David. David was stuck in his sins. And sometimes we're stuck in our sins, and we'll go to the point that, hey, no one noticed, so got to be right. And so someone would come along and bring that to our attention. Saul decided to keep wandering in his sin, so the lid never got lifted. David requests for forgiveness, and that lid got lifted off his life. The punishment came. He lived through the punishment. He stayed king from then on. So those lids, those things that hinder us from serving God, has to come off our preserve jar so that good stuff can come out.
And those of us who have been blessed to lead, not only must we try to remove the lids from our lives, but we also must be seekers in the lives of other people to recognize what their lid might be and how we can lift their lid.
Or help them lift their lid.
Absolutely. Assist them in their process. Because I am convinced that so many people do not realize that the lid is there.
Right.
Because they have just grown accustomed to it. And so, therefore, they don't realize it is there. As you talked about Saul and David, Saul having fear, and fear leads to jealousy and just a range of things. So he had fear, and then he was jealous of David. And I say about leaders is the one thing we must do is, and that is not be jealous. Simply because what God has ordained for you is for you. And I cannot take your ordained blessing of God. I cannot do it. Now, I can assist you in whatever God has called you to, but I cannot take it. And so, therefore, I should not be fearful of you, because if I'm walking in the path of God, and if I'm ordained of God, and you ordained of God, number one, God will never cause me to do anything injurious to you whatsoever. Right. That the only thing God will ever do with me is to lead me and to inspire me to actually assist you in obtaining God's will in your life. And so Saul had it all mixed up. Is David could have been and was his greatest asset.
That's right.
But he turned David into a liability and ran him off.
That's right.
And so therefore the reign of his kingdom was absolutely limited because of him, not anybody else. David did not end the kingdom of Saul. Saul ended his kingdom by being jealous and being afraid and being disobedient.
And you have hit it right on the head. Sometime we will get so misfocused that we will run our assets off. We will run the person that we need to make our organization successful off. And then we'll struggle and not knowing why we struggle. David could have helped Saul. David did help Saul. When Saul was tormented, David would come and play the harp, and it would just soothe him down. Think about our organization. When trouble comes, there's always someone that can come around and give you an encouraging word, or someone that may say something that would resonate in your heart. Then when that jealousy falls in, you don't remember that anymore, and you're trying to figure out how to either take the person's position or run them off. And that's what Saul did. Saul would be soothed in 1 minute, and as soon as he come out of that, the jealousy would come. But one of Saul's problem was he felt he was entitled to be king. He was selected as the king, so he was entitled. No position is guaranteed for you. You don't own the position. You're just a leaser of the position. You're there for a season, and when your season is over, it's time to move on, and someone else is going to take it. You know, sometimes we get in those positions and we think those are our position. I'm this person and I'm that person. No, you're not that person. That position is bigger than you. You're going to be there for a season, and you're going to be able to put the necessary things God give you in there. Then you have to move along. But what happens, we can see our successor coming sometime. And when we see our successor coming, we begin to try to find a way to eliminate our successor. But that's not going to happen. If God has deemed it to happen, and God did with Saul, God said, you've lost this kingdom. And he anointed David before David even killed Goliath. You're going to be king. And so those things have already happened. Now, how that transaction goes out, the leader can determine that. And that gets down to the mentoring parts we haven't got to the book yet, is who is it do I need to mentor? We tend to always want to mentor someone that looks like us, or someone that acts like us, or that someone that likes us. You know, I want God to show me who I need to be mentoring. God, okay, who do you have next, God? And put that person in front of me and tell me what I need to do to make that person better. Because as I said, the position is bigger. The position is bigger than me. And when I move out of this position, someone should move in behind me and the operation should continue to flourish. It should never take a step back. It should continue to move forward.
And that really is the ultimate test of our leadership, isn't it?
That's it.
It is whether or not we successfully mentored someone to actually step up and to take our place. I have believed for years that in the Church of a Living God, there should not be this disarray when a pastor die or when a pastor leave a church, because if I have done my job, and I believe that my God-given responsibility is to actually teach and mentor ministers to whereby somebody, God will decide who, but somebody will be able to step up, and Mount Carmel should not miss a beat if James E. Moore does not wake up tomorrow morning. And if that doesn't happen, I did not properly prepare and lead the congregation of Mount Carmel.
If we got a bunch of ministers already in the church and you leave and we got to get a search committee to go out and find someone, then somewhere there was a disconnect. There was a failure somewhere. And when I say mentor someone, I'm not saying make someone like me, because I have flaws and I'm afraid of someone taking everything I have. Now, take some of the good stuff I have, but now my flaws I don't want to put on you. And I'm hoping that God has put someone else in that person's life, also another leader in that person's life, that where my flaws are, that person would fill in. Now you have someone that have some of the good traits that I had, then some of the good traits that someone else had, some of the good traits that someone else had, because I don't want them making the same mistake I made, because the organization doesn't go anywhere. We stay right there the same. I want them to be a lot better than me. I want them to be able to take that next step and the organization takes on off and run. Again, at some point, we got to get out of the position, whether you want to or not. You're going to have to leave that position. Think about your job. Either you retire out of your job, you get fired out of your job, or you die out of your job. At some point, you're going to leave there one way or the other. How you leave it sets the tone for your legacy. Did you follow God or did you not follow God?
You know, in this sense, I really think, and not to be critical or judgmental, but as we look at the normal progression and movement of leadership in the average church, what I've seen and found is that there is disarray in the leadership when one leaves and another go. Now, if you look, and we are not to be looking at the world as an example to the church, but there are some things that the world do pretty good and we don't do so well at.
Right.
And changing leadership is one of them. Now, I know men do not decide who leads in the family of God. And so I don't want anybody to believe that I am suggesting otherwise. But in every corporation I know, you will find that there is, for the most part, when one leader leaves, there is one already there or has been chosen. When I left the Paris Island Armed Services Bank, my successor was already there. I told them I was going to retire. I called the president up, told him. He said, okay, just give me 1 year, if you will, and we'll go and we'll find. I already got him.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you do? Says, I got him. I told him that the operations manager was the person to relieve me. He said, are you sure she can do it? I said, I'm telling you, I guarantee you she can do it. You go out and bring somebody else if you want to, but I know that she can do it. And he says, okay, let me tell you, she did it, and she did it as well or probably better than I did. But so if you can have that kind of success in the corporate world,
mm-hmm.
why in the world can that not happen in God's kingdom? And I believe that it is not because God has not ordained so. I believe it is because sometimes we get selfish,
mm-hmm.
we get jealous,
mm-hmm.
and we don't provide for that succession, if you will. I look at the example in scriptures because I always believe I need to go to scripture.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at the example in scripture. When Moses left the scene, there was no doubt in Israel's mind about who the next leader was going to be. As a matter of fact, Moses announced to Israel that Joshua is going to be the next person. Now, I think about that. And what do I conclude? If I'm leading in the family of God, well, surely I have a responsibility to mentor somebody who is capable of doing this work. The Bible says that Joshua was with Moses,
mm-hmm.
that he was the minister of Moses. And as a matter of fact, wherever you saw Moses, you saw Joshua, because he was learning. He was learning how to lead.
Mm-hmm.
He was watching Moses, how he made decisions and how he actually exercised his authority. He did it. And so if it worked with Joshua and Moses, it'll work in Mount Carmel or wherever it'll work. It's just that the leader has got to be strong enough and got to be open enough to go ahead and set the stage. Now, God determines the time.
And who's next?
That's exactly right. And so what I want to do is I just want to do my part. I want to do my part. So whether I lay down one night and just don't wake up and the process go on, or whether I live to be, at 80 and God just speaks to me and says, okay, Moore, it's time for you to move over and we're going to bring this other guy out. In either case, it has my absolute and full support, because that's the way the family of God is supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so this book will help us to get there and to understand, as you said, that the position is bigger than we are. Mm-hmm. We've simply been placed there. God chose to put us in our positions for a season.
For the season.
And so when my season is over, and when your season is over as a deacon and or as a professor at TCL, God will let us know, but he will have somebody else to come and to take our position.
And I said we haven't gotten to that part of the book, and I tend to believe that's going to be a tough part of the book, because now you telling a leader to ask God to show me my successor. You saying, okay, God, show me who's going to take my place. Oh, now I have to come to the realization that I have to leave this position. And sometimes what we do, we look back over where God has blessed us in that walk in the position we in, and we make the assumptions that we did it ourselves. And we start thinking, oh, look what I've done, oh God, but I've built this. Wait a minute. And even in my position at work, a lot of people talk about how the criminal justice have really began to roll and how it really began to operate. And they almost had me there for a while because I started to look back and say, oh, look what I did. I had to remind myself, I haven't done anything. I walked in that job. I prayed to God for the job that he wanted me to have. That's where he put me. Things start working. Wherever he put me next, I'm open to wherever he's going to put me. And my prayer is that he will show me who the next person is, or he will humble me enough that I can, whatever I did right in the position, that the person who's going to get it next, that I could give that to them, whether I know I gave it to them or not. I think that's where we begin to be a little bit like Saul, because we feel we're entitled to. If that criminal justice department is successful, the only reason it's successful is because God showed me favor. That's the only reason. He smiled on me and he said, okay, as long as you follow me, I'll make it successful. And I'm convinced that as long as I'm praying to him and I'm following him and doing the things that he say are right, it's going to continue to be successful. And then the next person to come in, as long as that person follow him, it's going to be the same thing. We tend to begin to look at people and start judging them before we identify who our successors are. That was Saul's problem, is that his successor was already there and he could not see because he was entitled to his position. And we have to be careful that Saul didn't do anything. Saul didn't even choose himself. God chose Saul. And everything Saul was successful at, God allowed him to be successful. We have to be the same way, and we have to be careful about running people off, about making judgment about people. We have to be careful about those things. We have to see what we have that we can encourage that next person. And God will let us know, hey, if that's not the person, as long as you connected with the source, you're going to keep getting that energy. And if that person kind of interferes with that energy, the source will let you know, nope, that's not good. That's water, and it's going to set things on fire. Then when the right thing come along, the light bulb is going to light up. And we have to keep that in mind.
I could not agree with you more. The way I see things is if we would look at our lives and where God has placed us, if we would see it as the different phases of life that we go through. I thank God for this. I looked at being in the military as one phase of my life. So when I came to the point to where God spoke to my heart and say, it's time. Most people, to include my wife, most people told me, you are out of your mind to talk about retiring when you are retiring. Don't you realize that they are talking about making you the top enlisted man of all Marines, all 183,000 Marines, you are going to be the top guy. And my answer was, nope, it's time for me to go, because my eyes was not on those positions. My eyes was not on what I had accomplished. My eyes was on God, and it was, Lord, you show me. And I made the decision. And they asked me, well, will you stay one more year at Parris Island? And I said, I will, because the reason I'm going is because I want to spend more time at Mount Carmel. And so I left. There has not been one day that I regretted that I left. And lo and behold, once I made a decision, then all of a sudden I get a call one day and it says, would you talk to us about going and managing the bank. Never managed a bank in my life. Never worked in a bank in my life. Someone says, well, what do you want? And they send this guy down, and he says to me, look, we want to fly you out to Oklahoma. And basically what I'm telling you is they want you to manage this bank. I says, look, I don't have a degree in financial management. And the guy says, look, they have actually vetted you, and they just want you to come out and talk to them. I did. While I was there, 5 days I stayed there, and they said, you got the job. I says, nope, got to pray about it. I came back, prayed. 15 days I prayed. On the 16th day, my wife came back, and I told her I got the answer. I'm not working but 4 days. I can do it. 4 days I can do it, because I don't want to tie up myself at Mount Carmel to where I won't have some latitude. That's why I'm retiring. She said, nobody's going to let you work for 4 days a week. The Marine Corps knew you, and they know what you could do. In civilian life, nobody's going to let you tell it. So I called the guy up, says, hey, I can do it, but I'm not working but 4 days a week. He come back, says, okay, you got it. And so I stayed there for 18 years. 18 years, called the guy up, said, I'm going to retire. What's the matter? Nothing. Lord spoke to me. It's time to go. In life, that was another phase of my life. We had won the Bank of the Year 13 out of 17 years. We won the Bank of the Year for the entire Navy and the Marine Corps. Had never been done. But my thing is, it's time to go. It is time to go. And so people says, I can't believe you are leaving after all those achievements. I'm going because that phase of life is over. I pray to God that when it is time for me to leave Mount Carmel, it'll be the same way. God will speak to my heart. Hopefully, he would have shown me, and I would have told Mount Carmel, this is what I believe, and this is where God is telling me. But at this point, I'm gone. Because again, it's another phase of life that I'm going into. I believe as long as we look to God, and as long as we do not start looking back and believing that we've done it.
Yeah.
We did not do it. God did it. You are so right.
And the thing about when it's time to go, it's time to go. If you stay past the time for you to go, you become a liability to the organization, and what God has built through you, you begin to destroy along the way. I can't emphasize it enough. I think it was Hans Finzel wrote a book called The Top 10 Mistakes Leaders Make. And it took me a couple of years to read the book because I didn't want to learn about all the mistakes I was making at the time. But he talked about building churches in Germany. And he said one of the issue it was the life cycle of the church. That the church, a new church starts as an infant, and then it goes through that life stage. It becomes an adolescent, it becomes a teenager, it becomes a young adult, it becomes a middle-aged adult, and it's rolling all cylinders. Then it becomes the old age, and we begin to talk about, hey, we don't do that way here. We don't want your new ideas. We don't want the new people in. You know, if you come in, you got to do things this way because this is the way we've always done it. And then the church began to go to the graying years and begin to die out. And you start seeing that congregation go away. When you start allowing leaders to be there for their season, when their season is over, the new leaders to come in, then the church keep progressing. You don't get in that life cycle of a church where a church starts and then it die off. And there are many of them that have died off. They start and they up and they running and they're out there witnessing the people and they're just doing all these things. And as the leadership get older, the congregation get older, we're still doing the same things. We're not reaching some of the other people. So now we're kind of dying off. At some point, you have to leave. If you go past that time, if you go past your season, then you become a liability. A fruit can only stay on the tree for so long. Otherwise, it rot off and die. So when your season is over, it's time to move on. And I think that's part of our struggles, especially if God allow us to be successful in it. We kind of want to, kind of settle in our successes. I want to talk about my failure, but I want to settle in my successes some. Really, the leader has to take a look at the successes and the failure, how God helped them succeed, how we made our mistakes, and how God helped us overcome those mistakes, because God want to move us to the next level also. Leaders, he wants to take to that next level just like anyone else. But if you stay right where you are, then that's just right where you are. In order for you to go to that next level, you can't carry this to the next level. I was talking with one leader, and they were talking about being in charge of one program, and they got promoted to a higher position, and they said, hey, I just brought that on with me. And now that becomes a hindrance to that person. I'm like, you can't bring that along with you. At some point, you have to let that go so you can flourish in your new position. Otherwise, you get in that new position and you can't go no farther than where you were in the old position, and you look incompetent where you are. So at some point, you got to release it. You got to let it go.
The 21 most important minutes in a leader's day, I recommend it to every leader, but especially in the church. And I extend to everyone again that if you want to put together a session whereby this can be presented in your church, if you will contact us, the good deacon will absolutely be glad to assist in setting that up. Deacon Ricks, it has been a great blessing to have had you on Community Corner this day, and we simply say to you that you are doing a great job, and we thank TCL and the great things that you all are doing in the community here in Beaufort. And so we shall give you the last word, sir.
Thank you, Pastor. I'm honored for the opportunity, in that you thought I was worthy enough to even facilitate this class. But I'm honored that the leadership of Mount Carmel have come in and decided to come through this training. And anyone that's interested, we're there on Wednesday, the third Wednesday night is when one of our sessions, if you're interested and you want to try to come in and set in on one of them.
And so we will let you go, sir, only if you promise that you'll come back.
I definitely will, Pastor. Thank you for the opportunity.
Be blessed.
You too.
Thank you for joining us for Community Corner on 94.5 Praise. And don't forget to join us every Thursday at 7 o'clock for the latest in community programs and highlights. If you want more information on today's topics or guests, you can find it on our website at praise945.com. May the peace and blessings of the Lord be yours.